that's that's my cue. So welcome back, everybody. We're beginning the next panel. So this is the panel on pedagogical lexicography. We have 5 presentations on various topics. You will see that many are related to academic language, but in relation to tools, writing assistants, and so forth. And just to briefly present the structure, will be a bit different than the previous panel. So we will have short introduction from the panelists, and then I'll ask each of the panelists a question. Then we will panelists will be able to ask each other questions if they have them, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Now, if we don't run out of time, we will also address some of the sort of general issues or overarching questions that are touching on every single presentation. Okay, so without further ado, I see that I forgot to share my screen. Actually, I don't even need to at the moment. So Tanara, actually, I will share my screen just a second. So these are the 5 presentations. So I will ask Tanara to start with her presentation first. I'll stop sharing my screen and then she can take over, I think.
Okay, let's see if it works. Let's see. Let me know if you see. Do you see the slide?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you, Iztok. As you can see, this our paper, Gamifying the Path to Corpus-Based Pedagogical Dictionaries, is a paper with many researchers. There's a big group of us. There are 9 of us coming from 6 different countries, representing 5 different languages. And at this, we started, it all originated in the Inet Collect cost action. And at this moment of our project, we are developing a multi-modes game in which participants inform which sentences they consider to be inappropriate to language learning purposes. And they also provide the reason for such a choice. And for this, players have to indicate in which category or categories the example fits, ranging from sensitive related content to structural problems. What we want, the final product that we want to obtain from this game are problem annotated corpora that can be used for different purposes. One of them, the creation of learners' dictionaries. So what we wanted in the presentation was to answer this question. How does one create a game for lexicographical purposes? So if you see the video, if you haven't watched it yet, we shared some challenges we faced, some solutions found, and a few lessons learned so far in order to provide a stepping stone to other colleagues willing to adopt this method in their lexicographical projects. We basically shared the project plan, which is divided in 3 stages: data preparation, game preparation, and preparation for machine learning. And we have tasks in each one of these stages and expected output. I briefly showed in the video some of the subtasks that are part of each of those tasks. And if I can just highlight a few of the lessons we've learned so far, it's important to have a clear idea of what your goal with the game is. It's really important to spend time planning ahead, and you need to make the right questions in the process of decision making. And just very quickly, I just want to show you the group of people. This is a big team. And sorry, I really want to say a special word about Tanaka. You know that she passed away last year. She was a member of our group from the very beginning. She was very active, a lovely person to have around, and she is sorely missed. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tanara. We'll just move on to Gustavo.
For some reason, I can't start my video. It says like you can't start the video because the host has stopped it. Well, there is no need. I mean, I can share my screen. I think it's just.
Well, I can do it for you. Just a second. That's not a problem. Just direct me when. Okay. You have a single. I just have this slide, but I will show it. Just a second. Actually, you're right. I cannot do the same. Tanara, are you still sharing the screen? No.
Sorry, am I? I don't think I am.
No, it's fine. Gustavo, try now. Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Gustavo Zomer. I am from the University of Surrey. And in my study, I have reviewed existing writing assistants in order to assess how useful they are to researchers with English as a second language. And in my study, I have reviewed 38 writing assistants. I have conducted an analysis of 57 features across 8 categories with a special focus on lexical resources and features addressing cross-linguistic issues. I have also conducted a academic specific and overall feature analysis, and I have also conducted a more in-depth analysis of each feature across each assistant. And then I've concluded with a gap analysis to understand what is missing in existing solutions to address the specific needs of researchers with English as a second language. Here we have the summary of the results. In the horizontal axis, we have the overall feature score, and the vertical axis, we have the academic specific score. We can see from this that most assistants have a low overall and low academic specific score, and also only a few assistants have high academic overall score, including Linguics, Pro Writing Aid, and Grammarly. And only one assistant has a high academic specific score, which is Rightful. And from this, we can see that there's a need for new solutions. I think this is one of the main conclusions of my study. We need new solutions addressing the specific needs of researchers with English as a second language, especially including more lexical resources and addressing more cross-linguistic issues. In fact, this review helped to inform my main research, which is on the development of a new writing assistant to support researchers with English as a second language. Here we have a prototype that I have shown in my presentation. The writing assistant will will go beyond the typical grammatical error correction tool, and it will feature an integration with the corpus to promote data-driven learning. It also features an integrated translation tool within the writing assistant. Here on the left, we can see the phrase bank, which is a bank of common sentences given the topic of the section of a paper which the researcher can insert into the text. And here on the right, we have an integration with the corpus, which allow the researcher to perform queries to find sentence examples and compare the usage of frequency and the frequency of words and phrases, and more features such as translations and dictionary. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So so next one is Eleonora. I think you're presenting.
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me well? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so hi everybody. So I'm Eleonora Guzzi, and is also here with us Margarita Alonso-Ramos, who is my thesis supervisor. And well, I will share, let me see if I can share you the PowerPoint. I can't, I don't know why.
You should be able to, otherwise.
Okay. No, yeah.
Otherwise, okay. I did it, but.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, I'll do it and just tell me when to switch.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So our talk is about identifying the user's needs related to the academic vocabulary, specifically to lexical combinations such as collocations and formulas. So next, yeah, perfect. So, okay, so what we mean with the student lexical needs. So for example, when a student writes an academic text, he or she can face situations such as, for instance, I need a verb that combines with a noun conclusion, or I need an expression that is similar to it must be stressed. And do I know how to find it in a lexical tool? So having these questions in mind, among others, our purpose was to identify those lexical needs and to verify if our lexical tool for Spanish academic writing, that is called Arta, could meet those needs. So in order to do that, we designed a small experiment with 12 participants divided in 3 groups who had to complete the task. So user had to think of an alternative to the expressions underlined in 10 given sentences with collocation and formula. First without the tool and after checking Arta. And we implemented a think aloud protocol in order to observe the thought process of the students while searching in the tool. And then, so they had to record their screen and the voice all along the task. Then we generated the coding categories, and then we annotated the videos independently. And then we agreed the categories, and also we checked all the videos in order to don't miss information. And then, okay, just next slide. Yeah, so from the data that we obtained some results that we can see here. So briefly, as for collocations, most users do not know how to find actually collocates. So because they don't understand that search for collocates is not a search for synonyms. And regarding formulas, they don't know always that their lexical status. So for instance, some of them check for a part of the formula, like following the traditional procedures where multi-words are not in dictionaries and they don't have their own entry. Then regarding the corpus, we have a corpus that is a kind of backup of other functionalities, so it's not the main tab. And the participants who use the corpus to search the alternatives were less efficient. Also, we found that there were no correlation between the lexical competence and a successful search in Arta, and also that there were no correlation between lexical competence and the kind of user that was doing the task. And then finally, that there were, we found a good average level for success score, even without a kind of specific training with the tool. So finally, okay, even if our aim was to identify the needs, we also get a lot of ideas how to improve Arta. So for instance, that we have to better integrate the information of collocations, and also that we need to establish better a link between the discourse functions and the formula. So that's all. Thank you for sharing the screen.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, I think Dominika is next.
Yeah. Could you please share my, I just have the one slide.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm presenting a dictionary we are currently working on, a dictionary of core academic vocabulary in Czech. One part of our presentation is about the path to the list of headwords or Czech academic word list called eLex that was recently published on the Czech National Corpus webpage. We are listing several frequency and distribution features that we believe are efficient in finding academic words. The main point of the presentation is a reflection on users of academic dictionary of a small language such as Czech with 10 million speakers. First of all, the users will be very different from users of an English academic dictionary, who would be mostly non-native speakers. So the dictionary focuses on Czech native speakers on academics of all levels, from students at the beginning of their studies to professional academics. The dictionary should contain all kinds of information, namely frequency and meaning for beginners, collocations and synonyms for advanced and professional users, and translation equivalents from a number of languages for users writing an academic text in a non-native language. Very important is that all this information should be specific to academic texts. The users also should be able to adjust the content according to their level and their needs. Our hope is that the dictionary will stimulate an interest in academic Czech and will be used as a tool for academic writing. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think now to the last one. So Geraint, will you be sharing your screen or should I share your presentation? Okay, thank you.
So hello everybody, I hope you can see my screen. My name is Geraint Ries, and as of yesterday I'm a Sarah Hunter Fellow at Universidad Rovira y Virgili in Tarragona, Spain. But the research I talked about in my video was undertaken as in my role as a research fellow on the Collocaid project at the University of Surrey. So one of the principal motivations for the trend away from discrete lexical resources, so dictionaries, thesauri, towards greater integration with word processors and e-readers and things like that, is that ostensibly they make things easier for the user. However, I thought we really needed to put this assumption to the test. So the research I present in the video test this using a construct from the aerospace industry, namely the NASA Task Load Index. And well, you can see that the task load index is split into 6 dimensions: mental demand, physical demand, temporal demand, performance, effort, and frustration. And happily, I compared users' ratings of these demands, these components of workload, when using Collocaid and when using a more traditional lexicographic resource to complete a series of gapped sentences. So you can see that Collocaid, which is on the right here in each of these pairs, presents a clear advantage. But beyond this point, I also want to show that feelings are important in lexicographic research, that we should, I hope, go beyond purely using performative measures such as time or lookup success, and really pay more attention to how the users feel when they're using a lexicographic resource. I think this is particularly important in pedagogical lexicography. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Okay, this was a nice. These were nice short introductions of the presentations. If you haven't seen the full presentations, I do urge you to see them as well, because there is much more detail provided there. So now I guess we can start the discussions. As I said, I have one question for each of the presenters, and you, everybody else, you can already start writing questions in the chat, and we'll then address them as we go along. So let's, I'll just start with Tanara. Now, I'll touch on sort of the aspect of this particular game, which is dealing with cleaning offensive language from corpora. Now, my question is that you have offensive words which also have non-offensive meanings. So it's quite important that you make learners aware of such use of these words. So is that left to dictionaries, or can pedagogical corpora play a role in this, or even this particular word game?
Yes, thank you, Iztok, for this question. This is exactly the reason why we decided to go with this crowdsourcing instead of using the more traditional method for cleaning up corpora, which is using blacklists. I addressed this briefly in the video. As you might know, when you want to clean a corpus, you might use a list of words, and then offensive words, taboo words, and then you delete from the corpus all those texts that contain those words. And the problem is exactly that. We do know, and we did an experiment on Pybosa. So we did a more traditional crowdsourcing experiment before. And we saw that many of those words that are considered that were in blacklists for all the 5 languages that we work with, they do have double meanings. Yeah, so they are polysemous. Double, I mean, polysemous meanings, polysemous. And then what's important is that if you just delete those texts, you don't show that for to the users, yeah, to the learners. And yes, I think that pedagogical corpora can have that. And that's why we are labeling the corpus and not getting rid of everything. So our corpus will have sentences containing, we'll have sentences that the crowd considers to be offensive, and there will be a reason why, so there will be a label, and there will also be sentences that the crowd doesn't consider to be offensive or sensitive, yeah, because it's not only offensiveness, it's a sensitive related content. And so the teacher or the person developing a lexicographical resource can decide which example they want to show, depending on the level of your students or the purposes of your class, or so it's up to them.
Okay. Yeah. So I think you also answered a question we already have in the chat. So it's quite important point. So it's a corpus annotation task, not a cleanup task, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So let's. I have the next question is for Gustavo. I mean, the whole survey is quite extensive. There are many many assistants were evaluated, and the proposed tool is also interesting. But I noticed in the presentation that very often the 2 words are mentioned, which is writer and learner. And one thing I would like to ask is sort of, have you considered whether that works in practice, or how to best address this? Because you would normally expect that person puts a text, which is maybe even the full academic paper in this tool, and then you have loads of suggestions that you have to go through. And with all the checkings and the decisions one needs to make, how likely is that, you know, people then really do that? Or how do you then deal with maybe some of the things that Geraint was presenting, sort of the frustration or the time, or, you know, the feeling, basically?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, so I think there are two use cases that I'm currently seeing for the tool. I think the idea, one might be, as you said, like an editing tool where user actually pastes the text and then it needs to review and go through through each suggestion. But I think one of the main goals is actually to see the tool as a writing assistant. So the user will actually writing in the writing assistant, not just edit and review the suggestions. So in the end, it won't get all the suggestions at once, because the writer would be writing and adding more text and not just pasting the concluded text. This might be one of the use cases, of course, and it's not going to be prevented. But I think ideally, what I'm suggesting is to integrate tools that help while you are writing, not only as a post editing or something like that.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is for Eleonora. I found it particularly interesting, your conclusion about problems finding collocations or collocates and information about them. So given this sort of trend, and I'm talking about all the lexicographic and lexical resources where the multi-word expressions and units are becoming more and more put to the level of entries, of headwords. So will that cause a problem to the users? And have you detected any methods that will make users more capable of finding sort of collocations and other multi-word units?
Yeah, okay, so thank you for the question. It's a very complicated thing, I think, because as we saw in the analysis, in the data analysis, we observed that many of them were, for example, searching for the collocation, like if it was obtain a result, they were typing to obtain a result instead of just the base. But the problem is that, at least for our lexical tool that is linked to the dictionary of collocation of Spanish, where all the information is displayed in the entry because it's the node word, the base. So we think that the information will still need to be displayed in the entry of the base of the collocation, not maybe as a collocation in a tool. But for the formulas, for instance, we don't have a dictionary, but we can search for the whole formula as it was an entry. So actually, the multi-words here, the formulas, yes, are displayed, such as a compact chain of words. But some of the users didn't know how to find them, didn't type all the formula because they thought that they had to search only looking for the base. So, like a node word. So it must be stressed. They maybe were searching for the word stressed because they thought that it was the important one, but they didn't follow like coherent approach, because they didn't differentiate between collocations and formulas. So they didn't know how to look for them in each case. So there were a mix between formulas and collocations. And I think is the worst, the problem here, because how to explain them what is each item if they don't have a specific training and they don't know how what are they, and how to find them in the lexical tool if they don't differentiate the items. So I don't know. I think that, yeah, the collocation still has to be displayed as a node word. I mean, the information needs to be displayed in the node word, but the formulas are like just entries. The entries are the word chains. So I don't know if yeah.
Okay. I mean, I might have some ideas about that, but I'll put it in Lex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next question, which is for Dominika. I looked at your presentation, and I noticed that you aim to provide different types of information to different types of users, but at no point you mentioned corpus examples. So, I mean, why did you decide not to include this important level of contextualization of headwords?
Okay, thank you for that question. Actually, my presentation was kind of meant to bring some new ideas to me. So this is a great idea. I was thinking maybe more in terms of traditional dictionary, and I didn't think of connection between dictionary and corpus. So this connection is available in the tool, in the academic word list, eLex, that is already been published. But in the dictionary, I didn't think of that, and thank you for that.
Okay, right. And a question for Geraint. Your results show advantages of collocate over traditional resources. I would assume dictionaries and so forth. But looking at the task, I mean, could you also say that the gapped sentence task was perhaps biased towards collocate, because that tool works on that kind of principle where it helps you fill the gaps where dictionary and other things might not be so helpful in that?
Yeah, sure. Collocate is a tool specifically, thank you for the question, by the way. Collocate is a tool specifically designed for help with collocations and dictionaries and other things like even MT and language forums are kind of jacks of all trade. However, with the cohort I was doing this with, so fourth year undergraduate students on an applied linguistics or a translation degree program, collocations are one of the few systematic things they have problems with. So the task, I think, is a valid one, even though it is perhaps biased towards collocate. And the dictionaries are the kind of resources they do attempt to use to fulfill this need, to complete this task. So I see, in that sense, I see no problem in making the comparison.
Okay. So I mean, the panelists can now, if they have any questions for the colleagues, you can also ask them, but I will take the opportunity to take one from the audience. So this one is from Lars Trapp Jensen. I think it's directed at anyone that wants to answer it, I think. So what is the better resource? The one that maximizes learning or the one that quickly solves the current problem? So this is also, Lars mentioned that it relates to the previous presentation by Anna Zimianko on the non-examples or examples, so to speak. So if anyone wants to comment.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in if I may.
Sure.
When I was doing this study, looking at workload, this is one of my concerns. I mean, a resource could be quite difficult to use, but still on the part of the user provoke a lot of reflection, a lot of noticing. And in that sense, it would promote learning. Yet on the other hand, a resource could be really easy to use. And it was so easy to use and so slick and straightforward that there's no opportunity or very little opportunity for reflection, to notice patterns, for these kind of things we talk about in data-driven learning. Mm-hmm. What I'd really like to do is look at the interaction between these kind of workload scores, particularly the one for frustration and mental demand, and the actual results, whether the students, in my case, were successful in resolving their language doubts, and perhaps with a kind of some delayed post tests, whether the answer to their queries actually stuck, they actually learned something. I think that's I think that's a really interesting point and something that's certainly worth looking at in the future.
Okay. If anyone else wants to comment?
I think I can comment a bit on this.
Okay.
In my view, at least, I think we should try to balance these both strategies, because in the end, if you take to one extreme, and let's say trying to maximize solving the problem, we could just take, let's say, your paper or your text and send to a friend that is more expert in English and try to review it for you. But this is not going to be, is not going to learn anything on this. And if we try to balance both things, it would, like for instance, when in an integrated writing assistant, you could not only try to offer a suggestion, but you could also try to offer more explanations and in-depth context on why that suggestion is relevant, so that in the next occurrence of that same issue, the writer or the learner might try to automatically identify that as an error and don't make the same mistake or issue again. So I think that this idea of trying to integrate not only suggestions, but the issues and the explanation and how to promote learning with the suggestion is the best strategy. That's my view, at least.
Okay. Any other panelists has a comment? There's also a discussion going in the chat, so I think Dominika already answered Elena's question. Well, I have another question, which is a bit more general, and I would like to hear what panelists think about this. But when viewing these presentations, and I've worked with academic English quite a lot as well, and one of the things that's always sort of starts, I have these doubts where how do you integrate the academic part of one's life into the overall dictionary or writing tool use? Because basically when someone finishes high school, comes to the university, you are then thrown into this environment where you have to learn academic language, you're taught with different writing assistants and everything else, but then you leave that environment and you're basically thrown back and you don't have that continuity. So I mean, what are your thoughts on this, that the whole process should be a bit more integrated with everything that comes before and after, so people would use the tools and would sort of be used to, for example, if you use a writing assistant, that you then use it when you write certain letters in emails and so forth?
I like this question very much, and it just occurs to me that these kind of academic, one of the big debates in English for academic purposes, at least, is how to promote academic literacy. So the kind of research skills, essay writing skills, using the right degree of formality. And I think perhaps introducing writing assistants in the final years of high school or further education colleges is perhaps a nice way of promoting academic literacy. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, I would like to say maybe that's why I turned to a dictionary, because it's good for beginners. Do you think that writing assistants can be used by, high school students who don't have any clue about academic writing at all?
Okay.
I guess to the same extent they could use a dictionary, perhaps. I mean, it's a parallel debate to the debate about dictionary skills. I mean, ideally, writing assistants should be so user-friendly that they don't require any training to use, and certainly less so than a standard dictionary. So that was basically one of my reasons why I think it might be an interesting avenue to explore introducing these at an earlier stage in the education process.
Okay. Well, we still have 5 minutes, so there are time for more questions. There's a bit of discussion between Robert and Lars in the chat.
I have a question for Eleonora, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I really like the idea of Arta as a second language writer of academic Spanish myself. It could be very useful and very necessary. But my question is, given that we've got technical means to mitigate for this, does it really matter if users don't know the difference between formulas and collocations? I mean, I'm thinking about the search in Macmillan Dictionary, for example, where you can just type either of the two. And if, I guess it works on threshold basis, but if a certain amount of the keyword search for occur in a phrase, well, it appears, irrespective of whether this is a collocation or something more formulaic. I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, actually it's more a technical problem. I mean, we have, because our database of collocations is a dictionary of collocations that was made already some years ago. And yeah, all the collocations are based, as I said before, in the entries on the collocations. So we don't have our database, and our tool doesn't support, I mean, the search for a collocation if you look up for type in a collocate, for example. So we need to link. It will be the perfect tool to link all the parts of the items that we have. So doesn't matter what the user types, he or she can find whatever she or he wants. That will be the final aim, but we are some steps away from that. But of course, I mean, we don't need that the user knows what is a formula and what is a collocation. Actually, they don't know the terms, but sometimes they grasp some difference between them, because they're like, okay, I need just a verb to combine with result, or maybe I have to change all the expression, you know. So we don't need that difference, and of course the search will be easier if we can, if the user can find the target without knowing the difference between that. But by the moment, it's only like a technical problem that we don't have in our database. Everything linked to search for the collocation or the formulas. But yes, of course, yeah, it will be very nice to do that. Yeah.
Of course. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we had an explanation also for Margarita that there are not necessarily any keywords in formulas, but I think this is also a question of how sort of studying how users actually do search, and maybe, I mean, one thing is teaching them, but the other is really adapting the system. I mean, maybe you know, showing the category when you type in your search as under the results, if that's necessary. But I agree also with Grain that sometimes it's really not, you know, maybe not primarily needed to distinguish. It's more about the function that they want to complete.
Yeah.
Okay. We still have time for a couple more questions or any comments.
So I have a question for Gustavo, and
yes,
maybe for the others as well.
Yeah.
When I saw the presentation, I thought maybe the next logical step is building a translator with training data from academic texts. We all know that the general translators do not perform flawlessly for academic writing. So maybe instead of, or maybe not instead, but as a next step after tools for academic writing is a translator for academic writing. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think the issue of having a translation tool, it's related to the question of independence of being, or on whether should we try to promote learning versus trying to promote like solving the problem real quickly. But for instance, let's say like that 5 years from now, we have a better translation engine tool, which also supports academic translation. It might be good because you would get really fast results, but in the end, the user is completely dependent on the tool. and is not learning or improving the English or trying, and it might be hard for the user to know where the tool is not good enough and where you need to change it. So, I mean, I think translation, at least the way I see it, might be seen as a way to help you on something when you don't remember some specific sentences or some specific words, like a way to help you to remember things, but not necessarily do everything at once, because otherwise you would be completely dependent on the tool, and this does not promote learning. At least that's my view. I hope you have answered your question.
Okay.
Can I just chip in here, just to say that Gustavo has been very modest here in his reply, because in the next step in his PhD, he is developing a translation engine that helps to translate imperfect English into better academic English, and with some very interesting preliminary results. So, and this is being incorporated into the writing assistant.
Okay, thank you for this explanation. So I think at this point we should officially conclude the session. I mean, the discussion can also go on during the break, and I welcome any questions you can send to or publish at LexMeet platform. But for now, I'd like to thank all the panelists. Thank you for this very interesting discussion. I hope to see many writing assistants in the future in various languages and all the other tools that help us write. So looking forward to more discussions, and see you all in the next panel on data enrichment. Thank you.